Welcome to the Scandinavian Mind podcast, our weekly show about how technology is changing the creative industries. Today on the program, how Bestseller innovate using recycled textiles. We are speaking with Alexander Granberg, Senior Project Specialist Sustainability and Innovation at the Danish fashion company Bestseller, and Angeline Elfström, Business Development Manager at OnceMore. We talk about why working sustainably is a cross-disciplinary practice within a fashion company, lessons learned from implementing textile innovations, the need to educate the fashion industry on new technologies, and how the collaboration between Bestseller and OnceMore started. My name is Konrad Olsson, Editor-in-Chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind. Alright folks, this is the first episode in a series of conversations we will publish throughout 2024 in collaboration with textile innovations company OnceMore. Topics will range from the upcoming EU regulations for textiles and the business of sourcing textiles for recycling to how brands can implement new innovations in their collections. We are very proud of this collaboration as OnceMore and Scandinavian Mind's themes and missions overlap in many ways, specifically around the transformation of the fashion industry. To give an introduction to OnceMore, I asked Tina Lemke, Marketing Manager, to describe the company.
OnceMore is a high-quality dissolving pulp to start with. Today it contains 20% recycled textile and 80% wood from Södra's sustainable managed forest here in Sweden. We are the first part in the value chain, the textile value chain. We produce the raw material that then becomes garments. What is also unique with OnceMore is that we can handle blended textile, polycotton blend, and we separate the cotton, add it into our process, and gives the cotton a new life, even though it's blended. Our product is already blended and ready to be used. So that's OnceMore.
So what is Södra's role in this?
Södra is the company behind the innovation OnceMore, and our product is 80% wood, and the wood comes from Södra's forest owners. Södra is owned by over 50,000 members, families in Sweden that owns their own wood, and that's where we get our raw material, the 80% of it. So Södra is the company behind it.
Alright, that was Tina Lemke, Marketing Manager at OnceMore. Here now, my conversation with Alexander Granberg from Bestseller and Angeline Elfström from OnceMore. Enjoy. Alright, we are here at the OnceMore warehouse in Karlshamn in south of Sweden with Alexander Granberg, Senior Product Specialist for Sustainability and Innovation at Bestseller, and Angeline Elfström, Business Development Manager at OnceMore. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, we're in this warehouse at the OnceMore warehouse in south of Sweden. A very unusual setting for a podcast, but for good reason. We're here to talk about the collaboration between you guys and how to implement textile recycling in the fashion ecosystem. So, Alexander, I want to start with you, and let's describe your role, but maybe first describe Bestseller for people who don't know what Bestseller is.
Yeah, exactly. Might be some people who they don't know about the name Bestseller, but Bestseller is the mother company of, we have several brands under our umbrella, like Jack & Jones, Vermoda, Only, Selected. Yeah, it's around 15 different brands. It's mainly a wholesale company, so we sell mostly business to business. It's a Danish company, family owned. So yeah, it's a pretty big group. And my role in Bestseller, I work for the sustainability team, but then specifically in the innovation team. So I work with different innovation pilots and try to implement them in the supply chain. So
So let's say you work also, the work you do influences potentially all of the brands within the Bestseller group. So you kind of on group level.
Exactly. We call it corporate level, but yeah.
Good stuff. We're going to get back to that. I'm super curious about how you work, and we're going to exemplify this, of course, with OnceMore. But Angeline, I'm going to go over to you. Let's describe your role in OnceMore, and then we get into how your collaboration started.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm the business development manager for OnceMore, so responsible for growing this material, to telling the fashion industry that we are an enabler. This is not a new material, but it is a new touch of a material with recycled content. So we think that it's really needed for the fashion industry to make the transformation that we are talking about. So I'm talking to brands, but I'm also connecting to different stakeholders in the value chain. We are the first one in the value chain. We sell the pulp that we produce to the fiber producers, but then we have the spinners and then fabric manufacturers and garment manufacturers. So it's a long way to connect, but it's really interesting.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we're going to talk about how you guys at Bestseller took on this challenge. And I mean, obviously it must be really exciting for OnceMore to have Bestseller on, one of the biggest players in the Nordics when it comes to fashion. How did it all start? Did you reach out? Who reached out? How did this happen?
Yeah, actually, I think it was in 2021.
21, yeah.
And Bestseller reached out and we explained what we are doing. And I think your comment to that was, where have you been? And that was quite interesting because we're just, a 3-hour drive from Brande and Åhus. We're in the southern part of Sweden, and they didn't know about us. And I think that comes from, we are a traditional forest company. We want to have, a track record. We want to have a life vest and protection before we go out and talk. So when we explained this, it was not on lab test. We already had like a commercial product.
You were pretty far in the development already, which actually helped us to speed up the process. I think as Bestseller, we are quite used to that there are innovators or new material producers that they knock our door and ask, like, can we not do something together? But as you say, it was actually us reaching out to you. And I don't think it took so long actually until we had, in 2022, in Q2, we actually had some products in store. Yeah.
And that was was that Jack and Jones, the first one?
Exactly. We might have, it's similar to that shirt actually. It's the same, capsule collection.
So what was it with OnceMore that captured your attention in the beginning?
No, but of course, like in Bestseller, we know that we have a focus on different materials to promote recycling. We know that we need to prepare our supply chain, but also ourselves. There are legislation coming up, and also we need to focus on material that will lower our impact. So we were scouting, and especially in the innovation team, we are looking for new types of material that could be suitable for our products. Yeah.
And I mean, for us, Jack and Jones and Bestseller was a great start, a dream partner, because they had the resources and they've come some way, and they're looking into the materials. And we started with this shirt. We're of course very proud of that, because that was the first brand. That was the first time. We've been producing this pulp, the regular pulp, for 12 years, but this was the first time that you can actually go into a store and look at the hang tag and see that this raw material is coming from our mill in Mörrum. So I think the beginning, it was a great start. And then we have continued.
Yeah, we continue. Yeah.
Alexander, walk us through what's the process when taking on a new innovation like this? Because it's not the traditional way of, purchasing as a fashion brand. You go to maybe a garment manufacturer or maybe a textile producer, working with the pulp so early on in the supply chain is a different way of doing it. How do you assess these types of technologies, and tell me about the process?
Yeah, that's why we have an innovation team, because it's so different to how we normally source. Our sourcing teams, they work with the tier 1 and tier 2 manufacturers, and that's how they produce the products. But in this case, we actually need someone, and that's why I'm part of this project. We need someone who handhold the whole process, make sure that we discuss with all external stakeholders in the supply chain to make sure that we handhold the whole process to get the products in store.
How much do you have to educate or instruct your traditional supply chain? How much do you have to get in there and change things up, mix things up?
It's very disruptive, you know. First of all, like when we have a new material, there are like performance questions, quality questions, price questions. So they definitely need to know that there's a commitment there from Bestseller's side in order to carry this through. And that's why sometimes innovation can take quite some time to implement. But actually, due to you had some good relationship with the fiber producers already, that made it already easier for a plug and play solution.
Yeah, and I think it is a new material, it's a new story, but it's not a new material because we OnceMore has the same quality as the conventional pulp.
Right.
So for the textile manufacturers, it shouldn't be any difference. And I think that's a big difference if you're looking into like really new innovations where you're looking into, you have all examples of what you're looking into, but it's a new story and you have the recycled content, but it's not a new material. So it's a little bit easier to implement it because the textile manufacturers, they know how to handle viscose in this case.
Yeah, no, but that's true. But then it also takes a little bit it takes though some time to build up that connection to the suppliers and get the material out there. And even though if we say that it's on par with the conventional material, it just takes some time to convince. So that's also why they really need to know that there's a commitment on all the different levels from the brand side.
And time to commit, but also time to get the product through the value chain because it's so many different steps and you have some, in Europe and in Asia and in different countries. So it also takes time from we produce the pulp until we have the finished garment, 18 months maybe.
Yeah.
So that's also what takes time.
Yeah, for collection selling. Yeah, exactly. It takes time.
But Angeline, talk about like in this, situation, and you can use Bestseller as an example, but I know you work very actively with the fashion companies in terms of kind of knowledge sharing. You support them in this process. Talk about what that looks like from you guys, and what's the process from your perspective in that situation?
I mean, from our side, we want to get the fashion brands back to our roots to really understand where we come from. And that is, of course, both the forest, but also now looking to the textile waste. So we invited Bestseller quite early in this collaboration, the whole team to come to visit us and to spend a day in the forest. And also we went to Bestseller to understand your challenges, etc. So I think that's one of the parts that's really, And
when you say you mean the actual forest, not just the facilities or office.
Yeah, we went to the forest and had a few hours there in the rain, and it was a little bit cold, but it was okay.
It was so well planned. We said in the end of April, that's a really nice spring day, and I think we had 0 degrees and windy.
And it was raining.
But it was still interesting, right?
It was weird. No, but sometimes I think we forget when we sit here with the product that we actually produce that it's actually some part is coming from the textile, but actually some part is coming from the actual forest.
Right.
And that was really, it made an impact to see this.
And besides that, it's also a lot of knowledge, both about the raw material, but also about the process, our process, how we secure where the forest is coming from. It's a lot of different parts in this. And of course, also a lot about information sharing, data sharing. What information do we have about the raw material that then needs to be transferred all the way through the value chain, because Alexandra and Bestseller and the team needs to have this information when they have the garment.
Yeah, I think that's also something that have helped us, actually, that you have the full traceability of the forest that you managed. We have much more control of the actual product that we use in our garments. The traceability and transparency, that's really a key thing. Yeah.
But this goes both ways. What have you learned from working with Bestseller? What do you learn from the fashion industry from a collaboration like this? Because it must inform your...
What have you learned from me?
That's a lot, of course. Just, taking this step out in the value chain. I think in the beginning, in the first couple of meetings, we didn't really understand each other because we had completely different languages. I'm just talking about, yearly capacity in thousands of tons. And then when I'm talking to Alexander, he's like, this season and this pieces and how many meters. And, so it's been really a journey of understanding each other. And I think that's the most important, really, to get to know each other, building this relationship, and also understand our challenges. Because when we know the challenges, we can turn it around to possibilities, and then we can make this happen. Yeah. So I think really building this relationship, understand each other, and talking about the challenges. Yeah, that's important, because otherwise we don't know how we can support.
No, exactly. And I think we did this day when you came to our office and you met our sourcing teams and were able to explain more about your product and the process. I think that also helps a lot in order to, because of course we can share this information internally, but we also need you to carry some of that responsibility to talk to the broader teams internally. Yeah. And that's great.
And Alexander, talk to me about, you have your department, it's kind of on group level at Bestseller, and then you have all the brands. What happens after your work is done? How can you push this out onto the brands? Talk about that dynamic.
I think for us, it's a lot like, okay, we try this pilot because we want to prove the business case. We want to prove that it is possible. So maybe everything is not perfect, but we try to do it quick, and we try, as I said, we just try to prove the business case. And then when we've done this, we can explain to other internal functions, the sourcing teams. We can show them the example, tell them which suppliers we actually cooperate with, because they are also, of course, a key function here. And then, when we done it, of course, it needs to live up to specific criteria on performance, quality, climate impact, because it should be better material. And when we tick all those boxes, we can then say okay, now we put this in our portfolio of better materials, like the fashion forward material, as we mentioned, call them in Bestseller.
And that's of course some complexity, because as you said, the shirt that we produced the first time, that was one trial of getting that material or that composition. And then we have another one here showing that you can do something else. And then that was the first trial in this field. Yeah. So I think it's also to exploring the different possibilities that comes with this material. Yeah. It's not only one shirt, but you can do so many different things.
Yeah, and I think you were into that a little bit before, that your material or the pulp that you deliver is almost on par, or it's on par with conventional viscose, and this really shows that we were able to do different kind of products, like a knitwear. We have some woven shirts and dresses, which really shows the possibility of range. And this,
And now we have them in several brands in the Bestseller group.
Yeah, true. Yeah, we do. We're still, I think we are still getting there. It still takes a little bit time to implement. As I said, we need to have the suppliers really on board as well. But we have several brands using the material.
So which brands are there? We have Vermoda has something?
Yeah, so Jack & Jones, Object, Vila, Vermoda, and then we have some other brands starting up as well.
Yeah, quite the collection of brands there for once
a lot
more.
Of things in the pipeline.
Okay, good. Good to hear. No, but one thing we touched upon, which I also think is interesting to mention, is that when you are implementing something like this, it's not just whoever is sustainability responsible for the company, or it goes through so many different functions of a fashion brand, all the way out to the designer, I guess.
Yeah, no, exactly. And as you say, it's like we need to cooperate with all the internal stakeholders, like the environmental team, the quality control team, of course the brands, because in Bestseller every brand has its own sourcing office, so of course they also need to be on board. So it's a lot, it's a whole orchestra of people who needs to cooperate.
Yeah, and for fashion brands, different structured, but usually it's the innovation department that's looking into the materials. You have the sustainability department that wants to look into the numbers. You have the product developers. And then you have onboarded them, like we did at Jack & Jones, then it's time for the marketing and communication team to also onboard them, so they understand what's the difference and how can we use this in the garments, etc.
Right.
So we need to onboard the whole company in one way or another.
I want to ask a question about communications, but we'll leave that for later. I want to stick on this for a while, because I mean, we have a lot of listeners from different fashion brands, and not everyone has their own kind of innovation department as you have at Bestseller, and they're very, when I look at the industry, very different levels of understanding and knowledge in fashion brands today. Even at fairly big ones, it differs a lot between brands. So I'm curious, just from your both perspectives, what would any tips and recommendations be for a brand that wants to engage more, that wants to do more, wants to work with more recycling, more innovative materials? Where should one start? Angeline, maybe you have some thoughts on this.
I mean, the first thing is to start, because
apart from calling you, of course.
I mean, it's so easy to get stuck in the strategy, and we need a new material strategy, we need to look into this, we need to look into that. But I think is to start this conversation, as I said before, like start the conversation, connect in the value chain, understand how can we work together, what do we need to do, how can you support us, because we only have one planet. We're all in this, so we need to do it together.
Yeah, and I think I will just echoing more or less what you said, because it's also just to try something. And we know it's going to be disruptive. And of course, now in Bestseller, we have the luxury, or we have an innovation team who can do disruptive things. But I also think everything doesn't have to be perfect from the beginning. Start, get the knowledge, and then you can build on that. And then another thing, as you also mentioned, was definitely have your suppliers on board. Yeah. It will be, and find those key suppliers, and also looking at the lower tier levels that you can really work with.
And I think also for the brands to expect that we will have large scale innovative solutions, we need to start now and test so we can support in the development, because we are also on a journey. We're not done. OnceMore is not, this is the solution, this is what it's going to look like. We are also on a journey. We want to increase the recycled content. We want to, of course, increase the volumes, etc. But we need to start working now to understand and get input from the brands. What do you need? What do you think is important the next coming years, etc.?
No, and we have had that dialogue so many times. We have had Teams meetings. We also met face to face, and I think that really helps that we have this dialogue, so we understand what is your plan, like what is the plan the next 10 years. That also helps us to invest more in this collaboration.
Well, obviously, there is pressure coming in from the EU. We can't shy away from that, and I'm sure that's part of what you're doing. It's such a huge issue, can be its own conversation. But I'm curious, from both of your perspective, how does that influence the work you do? And feel free to pick any aspect of it. There are many different types of laws coming in. Alexander, starting with you.
No, and I think we. Working on corporate level and in the sustainability team and having EU legislation coming up, I think this is we also need this in the industry. We need to level the playing field. And it's also a great tool for us to use internally, that we need to prepare, we need to use, we need to invest in innovations. So it's a great tool to use. And we also hope that they will come, actually.
Angeline?
Yeah, that's good. That's good to hear. Now, but we are, of course, following this very closely, what's happening, and also we have a policy specialist, we are part of reference groups, so we also can get our input of what's possible from the raw material side. So we are both following the new regulations within the textile industry, but also, of course, from the forest perspective. For us, it is important to understand, especially the requirements that will push the brands. Because then we need to be able to support the brands with the information that you need. Yeah. So even if it's not affecting us directly, all the new regulations, it will affect us.
The one thing that is part of these legislations is is focused on communication. And Alexander, you don't work with the marketing per se for each brand, but I'm curious. I mean, there is information coming from these new types of innovative materials. There's information coming from OnceMore, for instance, that kind of trickles down into how you talk about the product, how you explain this. Any reflections around communication that's relevant, you think?
Yeah, and I think that's also where this close collaboration comes in, because maybe being a fashion brand and we can easily be scrutinized in media or etc. We also need to know, like, okay, actually this is. Sometimes you can come with like a communication example, and we will need to be like, okay, we are not even able to say this, which can also hamper the innovation in general. You know, that we do pay a green premium, and of course we would like to talk about this as much as possible, but we need to be a bit more cautious on that point.
And here we are learning a lot from the brands, because you have this pressure, what you can say and not can say. So of course we would need to adapt in our communication and how we can support, so you get the information that you can communicate.
Yeah.
That will be like hard facts.
Yeah.
Alexander, you mentioned a green premium there. I just want to pick up on that. I mean, it is a factor when it comes to implementing new materials. And obviously, once more, you're investing, enormous amounts of resources developing these products. How should one think about this green premium going forward? We don't have to look at it specifically at the product level right now, but I'm curious how you think of the roadmap going from here. How should we think about it as companies, as consumers? Which responsibilities do we need to have in this? Because at some point, someone has to pay for this development.
Yeah, I think you're asking the question that we don't really know yet. But I mean, as you say, the green premium is there. We just need to figuring out, because of course that will hamper the scalability. We do have customers. The reality is that our end consumers, they don't want to pay the extra, well, at least not a lot extra, because we do see that sales drops. So we need to figure out, how can we invest in that differently? For instance, how do we move those money around differently? And then, of course, we would like to have this communication with you guys, like, okay, we actually need to work together to create an infrastructure to get those prices down, because we all would like to create an industry which is better.
And I think we are working with it in many different ways, with different platforms, and also, scaling up, of course, helps. Yeah. So I think we've started this journey, and we have a lot of things to do.
And just lastly, I'm just curious to hear your reflections going forward. What is important for you guys? What are you excited about as the next step, to the extent you can talk about it? Alexander, starting with you.
Oh, I think we of course have worked with different innovations, and it's not only OnceMore. And I think we have come to a stage now that we really need to look at scalability. How do we actually lower our emissions? Right. How do we focus on our climate impact? And then we need to focus on scale. So that's going to be the next step. We need to build that closer relationship to the sourcing teams internally, and really work more strategically with our supply chain.
I love that. And I think scale is such an important word when it comes to actually creating impact. And I think I see also in the industry a lot more discussion focusing on that area. It's exciting with new technologies, but we also need them to work at scales. Otherwise, there's no point in doing them. Angeline, I know you have a lot in the pipeline, but just anything you're excited about in this year?
I think this year is very exciting, as you said. We have a lot of things in pipeline, and it's, of course, to broaden the network, getting more knowledge from the value chain, really understanding how can we do this together. We have a solution. We're not done, as I said. We're on a journey, but still, understand the different steps even deeper, and how we can support to make this transformation really happen, not just talking about it.
Not just talking about it. That's a good way to end this conversation. Let's stop talking about it. Let's start working. Alexander Granberg and Angeline Elfström, thank you so much for sharing your insights today.
Thank you.